Hello everyone and welcome back to the continuation of our lesson with regards to the elements of fiction. Last time, we talked about the characters and then the point of view. Now let's go to the plot. So what are the different types of plot? The first one is your dramatic plot. The dramatic plot is the usual plot that we see. First, there's the inciting incident, or this is where the characters and the settings are being introduced. And then, it rises up. This includes the events leading up to the main problem or conflict, and that is the rising action. Now remember, when it comes to rising action, it's not really a straight line, because in every story, the character may stumble upon some problems until he reaches or she reaches that climax. So there can be the first setback, second setback, and so on before reaching the climax. And the climax is when the problem reaches its highest point or reaches a high point. In this part also, there will be some big realizations, big turning of events, and then after that is a falling action, and this is when the characters work to solve the problem or conflict. And then it goes to the resolution, and this is how things end up in the story. Now, resolution can also be your denouement. The denouement is when things gets calmer and everything ends in the story. Now, the second type of plot is your episodic plot. It is taken from the word episode. Now, in each episode, there's going to be a rising action and then the climax, and then it goes down and it ends, and then again in another episode or in another chapter of the story, there's again the rising action and then the climax, and then it goes down again and it ends again, and then once again in another chapter or episode there's the rising action, and so on and so forth. It's just like, for example, with Provinciano, right? So ilang years na there's so many episodes in the Provinciano, and if you may notice, for example, in a week there's that major climax or there's that major problem that Cardo has to solve, right? And then it reaches to the climax and everybody was like talking about the story, and then after that climax it all goes down again, and another week comes and there's a new problem for Cardo to solve. Now that's an example of your episodic plot. There are many problems to be solved, and each episode has its own basic plot. The introduction, and then the rising action, and then the climax, and goes down again, and everything calms down, and then in another episode something happens again, and so on. So that's an episodic plot. Now let us proceed to another one. This is parallel plot. Now, parallel plot happens when the story focuses on two characters. We have here an example, the character 1 and the character 2. Let's say there's a story of the killer and the victim. Now, in the story, you can show what happened before the shooting or the killing. So the story will be showing the life of the villain before, or the villain or the murderer before the killing happened. And also, the story will show at the same time the life of the victim. Since it's parallel, it does not touch, right? But there will be instances that these lines will cross. For example, they met before already, and then again the lines will separate because we have to focus on we will again see their lives separately, and then we go to the climax. And in the climax, most of the time, of course, the lines will diverge, or the two characters will see each other, and maybe at this part the killing will happen, and then things will get resolved later on until the story ends. Okay? And the next type of plot is the flashback. With flashback, of course, we go back to a certain point from the past. Okay? So for example, the start of the story will be a man was dying in the middle of the street. He's like grasping for air, and there's a lot of tourists, circling him around, and then the flashback starts. What happened to this man, and why is he in the middle of the street grasping for his last breath? And then the rising action happens. The first flashback will be showing us who this man is, or what happened in the past that led to the death of this man. So there's going to be multiple of flashbacks, while the story also brings us back to the present. Or it is up to you if it's going to be all flashbacks, and then you will get to the climax wherein the story will be led back to the guy grasping for air. And then the story will continue, because after the flashback, now you know what actually happened with that guy and why is he in the middle of the street, and the story will continue on the present time. What happened to him after that, and then problems will be solved until you reach the resolution. If you have read, or if you're familiar with Dan Brown, the novel that he wrote entitled Digital Fortress, he used this plot, or this type of plot or technique, wherein there's the flashback for about 3/4 of the story until it led the readers to the present time until things are solved. We are done with the different types of plot. We have the dramatic plot, the episodic plot, the parallel plot, and the flashback. Now let us go to setting and atmosphere. Now you're already familiar that when we say setting, it is the time and place where the story happened. Now let me show you these pictures. Like this. Now this picture shows us that the setting of the story is during winter time, in the middle of the forest with pine trees, and there's snow. Of course, it's winter time, right? So this is the setting of the story. Now, if we apply some filters to it, the feelings that we receive from the picture changes. Now that is the atmosphere. Though this is the same picture that I showed you earlier, now with some filters and some added details on the colors, the feeling of this picture changed. Now when you write something, it is very important to add the atmosphere, because even though you have the same setting, like for example, a snowy land, it's winter time and it's snowing and kids are playing everywhere, we can hear giggles and laughters. Now with those details or descriptions, we can say that the atmosphere is happy and joyful, right? Because you can hear giggles, kids are playing around with the snow. But then we can change the atmosphere by changing some details. Like it was snowy. The snow is falling really hard, and I hear the snow crunches as I stepped on it. I breathe heavily, and every breath forms a fog in front of my face. something moved, and I looked back. With those description or even with the narration of the character, the atmosphere changed. Though it is the same setting, it's snowy, it's winter time, but because of the narration or the conversation, or even we can add some more detail to it, the atmosphere changes. With the last narration, it became mysterious. It's no longer happy. It's something, there can be that intense feeling of being scared of what was the sound that she heard or he heard, and he or she has to look back. So there's that dramatic atmosphere, and as well the emotion of being scared. So again, even though we have the same setting, the atmosphere can be changed with the use of, by adding some more details, especially the emotions and the feelings in that setting. Now let us go to conflict. Now, what are the different types of conflict? The first one is character versus self. Now, with character versus self, the main character or the character is having a battle with him or her self. For example, the dream of the main character is to be dancing on stage as a ballerina. However, she is also well aware that she has a stage fright. So there's going to be that struggle within herself if she will audition to become a ballerina dancer or not. And she doesn't really know if she can surpass her stage fright. So there's that internal or self conflict. Okay, so one example also when it comes to movies is your Spider-Man 3. With Spider-Man 3, the real Spider-Man here struggled with another character that developed when Spider-Man was exposed to some kind of alien being, and it consumed his character as Spider-Man. So there's a struggle within himself. Okay, the next one is character versus character. Now we have here Batman, for example, and another character is Joker. Now it can also be animal versus animal. Like we have the Lion King here, or Simba, and battling against Scar. Now that's another example of character versus character. The next one is character versus nature. The day after tomorrow. Now, with the day after tomorrow, everything freezes up. Just imagine the ocean freezing, everything is ice, and the characters has to struggle on how are they going to survive in such condition. Now, that's an example of character versus nature. Another one here is the movie entitled The Impossible. Now, with this movie, the family here went to Thailand for a vacation. However, there was this tsunami, and a huge part of Thailand was devastated, and the family got separated. And it shows to us how this family tried to survive in the middle of the disaster, as well as reconcile with each other. Now, fun fact, The Impossible is based on a real life story. Go check that out. The next one is your character versus supernatural. Now, characters here are against like ghosts, gods, or monsters that can be challenging for the main character to defeat. Of course, because these entities are much stronger than the main characters. However, of course, at the end, still the main character defeats them. So it's character versus supernatural. The next one is character versus technology. Now, with character versus technology, of course, the main character will be fighting against the new innovations in our technology, like, for example, artificial intelligence or machines built to replace man. So we have here an example of the movie I, Robot. In this story, cops are replaced with robots, but cops are replaced with robots, and these robots, instead of helping people later, it is used for something bad. Luckily, there's one robot that's actually good, and together with Will Smith, or the main character, they defeated the rest of the bad or controlled robots. And next one is the character versus society. Now, with character versus society, the character struggles with how people look at him or her. It also goes with being free to become who you are. However, the society or the people around you are not approving of what you want to be or what the character wanted to be. For example, here with Moana, right? Her family don't want her to be near water or go traveling across the ocean. She's made to believe that their life is already there in that island, if I remember it right. Okay, so she fought against that, and well, she went on a voyage together with Maui here. Okay, another example is Mulan, right? With Mulan, as a girl, she went to represent her father in the battle because her father is already old, and she knows that her father will not survive the war. However, in their society, women are not allowed to go on war because it's a guy thing. It's for the men of their society. However, she went against that and pretended to be a man, and later on she was discovered. However, as we go to the end of the story, she was accepted as well. Now, that's an example of character versus society. Now, that's the end of this lesson. For your activity as a preparation for your short story writing, you have to come up with an outline of who's your characters, where's the setting of your story, or what will be the problem that the main character will be solving, or that's the conflict. So first, write the title, and then who are your characters. Please specify if it's the protagonist or they're just supporting characters, and who is the antagonist. And then the setting, it can be just inside a house if the story will be revolving inside a house, or or it's up to you where's the place. And then what's the problem, the conflict, and then we will be focusing on the main character's description. So first, how does he or she looks, and what kind of personality does she have or does he have, and then what are his fears or his greatest fears or her greatest fears. And then the last one is his ambitions or goals in life. So we will focus on these things, and with this description of your character, you can shape your story on how will he or she will be acting to solve the conflict or the problem. Now, this has been Teacher Del. Bye!